This is the second video about clustering. The first video we have seen about k-means clustering and its working. Now we will continue with the hierarchical clustering and its working and dbScan.
The contents of this video is hierarchical clustering and its working, then the distance measures, the subdivision of hierarchical, that is agglomerative and divisive, and density-based clustering, that is dbScan. The hierarchical methods attempt to capture the structure of the data by constructing a tree of clusters. It is quite different from k-means. It doesn't require to specify the number of clusters or the cluster seeds. As we have discussed earlier, there are two types of hierarchical approaches, and one is agglomerative and the other one is divisive. In one approach called the agglomerative approach, for merging group or bottom-up approach, each object at the start is a cluster by itself and the nearby clusters are repeatedly merged, resulting in larger and larger clusters until some stopping criteria is met, or all objects are merged into a single large clusters, which is the highest level of the hierarchy. In a second approach called the divisive approach or the top-down approach, all the objects are put in a single clusters to start. The method then repeatedly performs splitting of clusters, resulting in smaller and smaller clusters until a stopping criteria is reached or each cluster has only one object in it. The results of all these clustering or hierarchical clustering methods depends on the distance measure which you are using there. The problem with these methods are it is not easy to evaluate the quality of the results. Distance between clusters. The hierarchical clustering methods require distance between clusters to be computed. These distance metrics are often called linkage metrics. There are a number of them proposed in the literature. We will discuss only some of them. Computing distances between large clusters can be expensive. Suppose one cluster has 50 objects and another one has 100. Then to compute most of the distance metrics, it would require the computing distance between each object in the first cluster with every object in the second cluster. Therefore, 5,000 distances would need to be computed just to compute a distance between two clusters. This can be expensive if each object has many attributes. We will discuss the following methods for computing distances between the clusters: single link algorithm, complete link algorithm, centroid algorithm, and average link algorithm. Single link algorithm. The single link or the nearest neighbor algorithm is perhaps the simplest algorithm for computing distance between two clusters. The algorithm determines the distance between two clusters as the minimum of the distance between all pairs of points A, B, where A is from the first cluster and B is from the second. The algorithm therefore requires that all pairwise distance be computed and find the smallest distance. Complete link algorithm. The complete link algorithm is also called the farthest neighbor algorithm. In this algorithm, the distance between two clusters is defined as the maximum of the pairwise distance A, B. Therefore, if there are m elements in one cluster and n in other, all mn pairwise distance therefore must be computed and the largest chosen. Complete link is strongly biased towards compact clusters. The figure shows two clusters A and B and the complete link distance between them. The complete link can be disturbed by moderate outlier in one or both of the clusters. In the centroid algorithm, the distance between two clusters is determined as the distance between the centroid of the clusters as shown in the diagram. The centroid algorithm computes the average point of each of the two clusters and find the distance between them. Usually, the squared Euclidean distance between the centroid is used. This approach is easy and generally works well in more and is more tolerant longer clusters than the complete link algorithm. Considering the two clusters A and B, as you can see that the centroids are found first for both A cluster and the B cluster, and the distance between those two are found. So this is how the centroid method is used. The average link or pair group average method algorithm, on the other hand, computes the distance between two clusters as the average of all pairwise distance between an object from one cluster to the other cluster. Therefore, if there are p elements in one cluster and n elements in the other cluster, there are mn distances to be computed, added and divided by mn. This approach also generally works well. It tends to join clusters with small variances, although it is more tolerant of longer clusters than the complete link algorithm. Now we can see in the diagram that there are A clusters and B clusters, and every point in the A cluster is computed with every point in the B cluster, and the average of each of these distances will be considered. So we need 16 distances to be computed for 4 objects in each clusters. That is the average link method, distance method. The basic idea of the agglomerative method is to start out with n clusters for n data points. That is, each cluster consisting of a single data point. Using a measure of distance at each step of the method merges two nearest clusters, thus reducing the number of clusters and building successively larger clusters. The process continues until the required number of clusters has been obtained, or all the data points are in one cluster. The agglomerative method leads to hierarchical clusters in which at each step we build larger and larger clusters that include increasingly dissimilar objects. The same thing what I have explained now is been written below as the algorithm for agglomerative method. It is mentioned as 6 steps. We will see an example now. We now use agglomerative clustering for clustering the data given an example for table given below. This data is reproduced as the same which is used in the k-means also. We will be using the Manhattan distance to do this problem, and we'll use the centroid method to find out the distance between clusters. We will first calculate the distance matrix. In the distance matrix, it is allocate each point to a cluster and compute distance matrix using the centroid method. The distance matrix is symmetric, so we will only show the half of it. Now in this we can see that the matrix given is calculated, and how it is calculated is shown below. That is the distance from S2 to S1 and S3 to S1. Now S2 to S1 we can see that how it is calculated and how we have got the 34. That is, you have to refer the previous table also for all these values. Now after creating this distance matrix, we are seeing that which is the smallest distance here. Now we can see 8 is the smallest distance here, that is between S4 and S8. Now we'll consider S4, S8 to be combined together to form a cluster. Now in the first iteration we are combining S4 and S8 as cluster 1. So to find out the cluster 1 value, we will find out the average of S4 and S8 because we are combining both. So we'll get the cluster 1 value as 21, 54, 56 and 57. So how is that these values are got us? It's the average of the above two. Now considering the as S4 and S8 as cluster, new cluster, S4 and S8 has been removed from the table and cluster 1 has been added there. So we have to calculate the distance from each object to the cluster 1, and that has been replaced in the table. Again we have to see which is the smallest value. That is 15 here, and that is between S5 and S6. So in the next iteration we have to combine S5 and S6 to form another cluster. In the iteration 2, we can see that S5 and S6 has been combined and cluster 2 has been calculated here. The same thing as how we have done the iteration 1, the distance from each object to the cluster 2 has been calculated, and that has been replaced in the distance matrix. And again we will see which is the smallest value. Now here it is 16. So that is between S3 and S7, so that becomes the next cluster. Again in iteration 3, we are combining S3 and S7, we will get cluster 3, find out the distance of each object to cluster 3 and replace it in the distance matrix, and we can again find out what is the lowest value. Here it is between S1 and C3, that is 15. So the next cluster is a combination of C3 and S1. In iteration 4, we are combining S1 and C3 and forming a new cluster, that is C4. Again finding the distance from C4 to all the objects, replace it in the distance matrix. Again find out the lowest value. Here it is 22. That is between S2 and S9. So that becomes the new cluster. In iteration 5, we are combining S2 and S9, getting cluster 5. Cluster 5, the distance between other objects to the cluster 5, distance matrix is created. Now we can see that the distance matrix is getting smaller and smaller as it is getting all the objects are combined and new clusters are formed. Now in this we can see another phenomenon, that we have two values similar. That is, the lowest value is 33, which is between C4 and C5 and C5 and C2. Now the question is which one to take. There is no rule how to take it. You can take randomly. Here I will be taking C4 and C5. In iteration 6, C4 and C5 is combined to get C6, that is cluster 6. Again with the cluster 6, the distance are calculated. We are finding the lowest distance, that is 35. That is between C1 and C6. In iteration 7, we have C1, C6 combined to form C7. And C7, the distance to C2 and S10. And we can see that we get the only value is S10. So I guess we can stop here, as now all these comes into a single cluster, that is C7, C2 and S10 comes to a single cluster. So now we can create the hierarchical structure from the clusters how we are combined. As we can see in the iteration 7, C7 can be combined to C2 and S10 and form a hierarchy. So how this will look like? We have 9 steps or 9 clusters. Cluster 9 will have C7 and C8. And C7 and C8. C7 will have C1 and C6. C8 will have C2 and S10. Now C1 will have again S4 and S8. And C6 will have C4 and C5. Cluster 2 will have S5 and S6. Now again there is an expansion or hierarchy down for C4 and C5. Now C4 and C5, in that C4, cluster 4 will have S1 and C3, and cluster 5 will have S2 and S9. Again the cluster 3, if we are subdividing, it will be cluster 3 has S3 and S7. So in this way the agglomerative clustering helps us to create the hierarchy of objects. Now if we are drawing these lines all till the down near to the S3 and S7, you can see that all the basic objects are here on the same line and how the clusters are created. The divisive method is the opposite of the agglomerative method, in that the method starts with the whole data set as one cluster and then proceeds to recursively divide the cluster into 2 subclusters and continues until each cluster has only one object or some other stopping criterion has been met. There are 2 types of divisive methods, monothetic and polythetic. Monothetic splits a cluster using only one attribute at a time. An attribute that has the most variation could be selected. Polythetic splits a cluster using all of the attributes together. Two clusters far apart could be built based on distance between the objects. A typical polythetic divisive method works the given 6 steps. Decide a method of measuring the distance between two objects. Also decide a threshold distance. Create a distance matrix, which we have already seen in the agglomerator. Now we have to find out the largest distance between them. In agglomerative, we were taking the smallest distance. Here we are taking the largest distance. They are the most dissimilar objects. Now, a pair of objects we have to select as seeds of a k-means method to create 2 new clusters. If there is only one object in each cluster, then stop, otherwise continue from step 2. The distance between two objects is smaller than the pre-specified threshold also, we can stop, otherwise continue. These are the steps in which we will be doing the polythetic divisive algorithm. When we are talking about divisive, 2 major issues we need to consider. That is, which cluster to split next and how to split the clusters. Now let's see which cluster to split next. To find this, there are many possibilities. One is split the cluster in some sequential order. Second one is split the cluster that has the largest number of objects. Third one is split the cluster that has the largest variation within it. The first 2 approaches are clearly very simple, but the third approach is better, since it is based on the sound criterion of splitting a cluster that has the most variance. Next is how to split a cluster. The simple approach for splitting a cluster is finding the distance between the objects in the cluster. A distance matrix is created and the 2 most dissimilar objects are selected as seeds of 2 new clusters. The k-means method is then used to split the cluster. Now we will see an example to do the divisive clustering. The same example we have taken for the k-means as well as for the agglomerative clustering, the student details, which is shown on the PPT. And here also we will be taking the Manhattan's distance to find out the distance between 2 objects and centroid method for distance between clusters. Now we will calculate the distance matrix. Here we can see the distance matrix, which is done in the same way as we have done for the agglomerator. That is, below the table distance matrix, we can see that from S2 to S1 it has been calculated, and S3 to S1 also it is shown how it is calculated. Now this matrix gives the distance between each object with every other object. Now here we will be taking the largest distance, and that is 106, that is between S4 and S6. They become the seeds for 2 new clusters. Now using the k-means, we will be splitting the clusters. Here we can see that we are finding the distance from S4 and S6 to each of the other objects. That is the distance from S4 to S1, S2, S3, S5, S7, S8, S9 and S10. The same way with the S6. Now we'll see which object is near to which cluster centroid or the seeds. Now when we are taking S1, it is near to S4, S2 near to S6, S3 near to S4, S5 near to S6, S7 near to S4, S8 near to S4, S9 near to S6 and S10 near to S6. Accordingly, we have created the 2 clusters C1 and C2. Now the next is we have to find out or split these 2 clusters separately. So in the next iteration, we are going to take the cluster C1 first. Now when we consider the cluster 1, we have to first find out the distance between the objects inside the cluster 1. That is the distance matrix table which is shown here. Now in that, if you are seeing, 44 is the largest distance, that is between S1 and S8. Now cluster 1 therefore can be splitted again with S1 and S8 as seeds. So since the stopping criteria is not met, it will be going further. Now to put it inside the cluster, we will find out S1 and S8 as seeds, and then we will find out the distance towards the other objects. Now accordingly, we are again going to divide the clusters, that is C1 and C3. C2 is already there, So I am putting cluster 3, that is C1 is S4 and C3 is S1 as seeds. Now when you are seeing the distance, S3 comes in S1, so it is there here, and S4 comes in C1, it is here, and S7 comes in S1. So S7 is there with S1, that is C3, and S8 is there here in the cluster already there. So the cluster C1 is divided into two clusters, that is C1 and C3. Now in the next iteration we'll go for the split up of C3. Cluster 3 had 3 elements, that is S1, S3 and S7. So we are going to split that. To split that, we have to find out the distance matrix between these 3. So that is what we have seen here. And here one thing we can see that the distance, the highest distance or the largest distance is 18, which is having between two clusters, that is S1, S3 and S7, S1. So we can go for any one of this. I am taking S1, S3. So S1, S3 as seeds, we are going to find out the distance with the S7. Now it will be like S1 is there in S3, S4 will have the seed as S3 and S7 falls in C4. So we have 4 clusters now where C1 is split into C1, C3 and C4. And now we have to go for splitting up the cluster 2. In splitting up of C2, again we have to do the same process as we have done for C1. That is, you have to find out the distance matrix. Now here the largest distance is 70, that is between S6 and S10. And C2 can be splitted up of C2 and C5, that is with the S6 and S10 as the seeds. Now find out the distance from S6 and S10 to all the other objects. Find out the members in each cluster. So C2 has S6, S2, S5 and S9, and C5 has only S10. Now we have to, in the next iteration, we have to split up C2. In the next iteration, that is iteration 5, we have to split up again C2. Now C2 again, we have to find out the distance matrix. The largest distance here is 46, and 46 is between S6 and S9. So the seeds are S6 and S9. From S6 and S9, we'll find out the distance towards the other objects, and we will find out the cluster split. So what is the cluster split here? C2 will have S6 and S5, C6 will have S9 and S2. Now most of the clusters are having 2 members, and only C5 has 1 member object. Now from here we can draw the hierarchy. Now in this we are creating the hierarchy just like the agglomerator. Now here what we are doing is we start from the top and split it into all these objects. Now what is the difference here? Now we have S4 and S8 in cluster 1, S3 and S7 in cluster 4, and then again S1 we have all these things with cluster 3. Now in C6 we have S2 and S9, cluster 2 we have S5 and S6, and S10 is and all the C6, C2 and C5 is in, and S10 is in cluster 5. Now we can consider this as C6, and C6 is the cluster which has all the objects, and that comes to the ending criteria. So we close this. This is how we'll do the divisive clustering algorithm and create a hierarchy structure. In this slide, I have written the differences of agglomerative and divisive clustering, a part of hierarchical clustering. Just go through the writings and understand what it is. Here we will see the advantages of the hierarchical cluster. Hierarchical approach can give more insight into the data. It can be implemented easily. Now in some applications where proximity data is available, then this approach may be better and faster. Hierarchical method can provide clusters at different levels of granularity. Disadvantages shows that it doesn't have a mechanism by which objects that have been incorrectly put in a cluster may be reassigned to another cluster. then the time complexity is big O of n cube. If the distance metrics require big O of n cube, it becomes very large for a large number of objects. The different distance metrics and scaling of data can significantly change the results. The density-based methods are based on the assumption that clusters are high-density collection of data of arbitrary shape that are separated by a large space of low-density data, which is assumed to be noise. Therefore, the basis for density-based method is that for each data point in a cluster, at least a minimum number of points must exist within a given distance. Data that is not within such high density cluster is regarded as outliers or noise. While dealing with spatial clusters of different density, size and shape, it is challenging to detect the cluster of points. If the data contains noise and outlier, it will become more complicated. To deal with this, Martin Ester and his co-authors has proposed DBSCAN, that is density-based spatial clustering of applications with noise. Three main reasons for using this algorithm according to Ester are: it requires minimum knowledge, it can discover clusters of arbitrary shape, then efficient for large database, that is more than few thousands of data. To understand DBSCAN more, we have to see the algorithm. So the main concept of DBSCAN algorithm is to locate regions of high density that are separated from one another by regions of low density. Now how do we find this? There are two steps, that is one, density at a particular point P and the dense region. Now what is density at a point P? That is number of points within a circle of radius epsilon from the point P. Now what is dense region? For each point in the cluster, the circle with radius epsilon contains at least minimum number of points, that is min points, which we will be giving. Now another concept called neighborhood. Now what is an epsilon neighborhood of a point P in the database D? D is nothing but the data set. Now neighboring point, that is n of P, is equal to Q element of D, that is Q is an element of the data set where distance between PQ is less than epsilon, that is the point is inside the circle. As we have seen that the epsilon and min point is the basic two parameters, which is what we have to define first. Now when we are defining the epsilon, we have to be careful in two different things, that is it cannot be too low or it cannot be too high. Now why is it that? If the epsilon value is chosen too small, then the large part of the data will be considered as outliers. Vice versa, if it is very large, then all the clusters will merge and majority of the data points will be in the same clusters. So the one way of finding the epsilon value is based on k distance graph. In the same way, for the min point also, we have to be very careful. Min point is nothing but the minimum number of neighbors within the epsilon radius which we will be giving. Now how do we define this? The larger the data set, the larger the value of min point can be chosen or must be chosen. As a general rule, the minimum min point can be derived from the number of dimensions D in the data set as min points greater than or equal to D plus 1. The minimum value of min point must be chosen at least 3. So the minimum point has to be at least 3 or more than 3. Ideally, it is the number of dimension D, that is your attribute number, plus 1. So the min point should be greater than the attribute numbers plus 1. In the algorithm, we have to see another important thing, that is we will have 3 types of data points, that is core point, border point or noise or outlier. Now we can see that in the diagram, epsilon is the distance from P to the circle radius. Now that P becomes the core point. Border point is the point which is there on the borderline. So it will be the point which has a fewer than min points within epsilon, but it is in the neighborhood of a core point. That is, it is in the neighborhood of the core point which is inside or on the borderline of the epsilon, but it has the very less min points compared to others. Noise or outlier is a point not in a core point or a border point. It is outside this. To define the algorithm, we have to explain 4 more concepts. Neighborhood we have already defined, but for describing the algorithm, we have to define what it is. So the neighborhood of an object y is defined as all the objects that are within the radius r. So here the important part is radius r from y. The core object, an object y, is called a core object if there are n objects within its neighborhood. The n is the neighborhood value or min points. Proximity. 2 objects are defined to be in proximity to each other if they belong to the same cluster, that is within the epsilon value itself. So object x1 is in the proximity to object x2 if the conditions are satisfied. One condition is the objects are close enough to each other, that is within the distance r, that is within the epsilon value. x2 is a core object as defined above. So within the radius, and it is a core object also. These are 2 things which is in the proximity. Now connectivity. 2 objects x1 and xn are connected if there is a path or chain of objects x1, x2 to xn from x1 to xn such that xi plus 1 is in proximity to xi. And now when we hear this, it looks little confusing, but nothing, because 2 objects are there and we can say that it is connected if it is connected through other objects also and all the objects are inside the epsilon value. Then that is inside a cluster all the objects are connected. Outside the cluster it is not connected. So that is what it is meaning by. Now comes the algorithm. Select the values of r and n, that is the radius and the min points. Then arbitrarily select a point P or an object P. Retrieve all objects that are connected to P given r and n. So how do you find this? Take the point, find out the distance with all the objects, and whatever is less than or equal to the radius, that will be considered. We're considering the number of min points which is required inside the cluster. If the min points is matched, it goes to step 4, that is P becomes the core object and a cluster is formed. If P is a border object, no objects are in its proximity, choose another object and go to step 3. This continues until all of the objects have been processed. This is the density based algorithm. So when you are writing for the exam, you have to write all the concepts. What is core object? What is borderline object? What is proximity, connectivity, neighborhood, and all these things need to be explained before writing this algorithm.
Now we have completed the session on clustering by discussing about the fundamentals of clustering, k-means algorithm, hierarchical algorithm, and dbSCAN. I suggest all of you to work out all the problems which are done in both the videos, and also try to solve extra questions. Thank you for listening to the session on clustering.